Um, let's go back to Duro Omogbenigun. Duro is in the power sector. He runs Integrated Resources Limited, a meter asset provider to Ibadan and Eko Discos, and contracted to provide some 200,000 meters. He's also a pioneer director at IBOM Power Company, a 165 megawatts operational power plant. In the oil sector, he traded physical refined petroleum products and holds an interest in OPL 240. Duro is also a member of a leading UK financial services company, MPL Advisors, that provides advisory services and investment mobilization. Duro graduated with an MBA from the Yale School of Management and holds 2 degrees in electrical engineering. Duro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Idehe and Esosa and the Nigerian Business Magazine. It's a wonderful forum you've put together. And to my co-panelists, a very good afternoon from Nigeria. And to all our audience, thank you for joining us as we go into the issues in the infrastructure of Nigeria. I'm going to be looking at the electricity sector and how to make it work. Naturally, in order to make it work, I think we'll look at some of the issues. And I believe that many of us have heard about the Nigerian electricity situation. Not enough power always. That, in fact, is the acronym from one of the names of the state electricity company at one time. So why do we not have enough power? The country is 60 years old now, and still not enough power. We have a situation where it's a case of too little, too late. The population has been growing without corresponding infrastructural growth. And again, you know, the lack of infrastructural growth means also there's been inadequate generation. In Nigeria, there is an established capacity of about 12,500 megawatts, but typically only about 3,500 to 4,700 megawatts can be delivered for consumption. Compare that to South Africa, where the established capacity is 51,300 megawatts. And they have a population of about a population of about 57 million, and Nigeria has a population of 200 million. So you can see the disparity in there and why there is just not enough power to share between all the, to share within the demand. Now, where does our power come from and why is it just not enough? You know, in Nigeria, we generate a lot of the power from thermal and hydro, and you have about 80% thermal and about maybe 20% hydro. The country is only just looking into new energy sources to diversify the energy mix with solar and waste to energy. Wind farms have not really come on into our space yet. But a lot of our thermal energy is produced from gas. And the amazing thing is that Nigeria is actually considered a gas province rather than an oil province, rather than in the hydrocarbon sector. And so if we have all this gas, we're still not producing enough power to feed the demand, and the demand is growing daily, you know. So, but the interesting thing about Nigeria is Nigeria has a lot of very good programs lined up. It's the will to get these programs implemented that is leaving us short. For instance, in the gas sector, you have the gas roadmap. You have in the electricity, you know, the overarching electricity sector, you have the power sector recovery operation, you have the presidential power initiative. There are a lot of programs, but there hasn't been enough activity economic and policy implementation, sustainability of this implementation to get us going and to keep us on a sustainable path that will make investment come in and boost the sector. What is the sector? What's the structure of the industry? I will not take a lot of time on some of these things. In Nigeria, you have stakeholders like the Ministry of Power, the regulator, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. You have the standards and the electricity management organizations. You have the various power development corporations like the NDPHC, Niger Delta Power Handling Company, the Integrated Power System. You have foreign entities that are interested and helping out. You have the most recent of which is Siemens under the Presidential Power Initiative. Then you have the major guys who keep things running or not running well enough. You have the GENCOs, the generating company, the distribution companies, and you have the transmission company of Nigeria. Now, you have the meter asset providers, you have the companies set up by government to handle the legacy issues, which is NEMCO, and also the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company, which writes the PPAs, takes the power from the GENCOs and sells on to the distribution companies. The industry, the sector here is largely privatized. And so you have the GENCOs are privately owned. The transmission company is owned by government, and the DISCOs are also privately owned. However, a major issue that all of these parties have, two major issues are they suffer from a non-cost reflective tariff, as well as also the GENCOs will tell you that, look, I don't get 100% of what I invoice. I get only maybe about 40 now, it's about maybe 60% of invoice amount. So general issues, like I've said, there's the non-cost reflective tariff, and the tariff is generally guided by what is called the MITO, multi-year tariff order, which is meant to be reviewed every 6 months and then a major review every 5 years. However, this has not been happening. And so MITO and the tariff itself is lagging inflation impact, lagging foreign exchange impact. And so the DISCOs are generally not happy because then they do not have, they're not able to sustain quality of power. They're not able to upgrade their infrastructure, and just not enough to invest in a sustainable power delivery. And so because infrastructure is old and not enough investment, you have what is large, you have large ATC and C losses. And what are these ATC and C losses? Well, they are generated from aging equipment, lack of appropriate collection. Many customers are unmetered, and so the DISCOs suffer a lot of loss. They collect so much energy from the system, from the transmission company through NBM, but they are only able to invoice for maybe, I think now they are trying to get up to 60% of what they collect. And so there's a huge gap in the revenue collection and revenue security. Therefore, you have government still coming in with subsidies. Now, this is a big problem in the system because the subsidies are not even sustainable. Therefore, then, there's inadequate generation again. Like I've said, we have only about 12,500 megawatts. And if we were to go on the same standard as in South Africa, we should, with a population of 200 million, we should probably be at about 200,000 megawatts as well. But that we do not have at the moment. But there are a lot of initiatives coming on now, and the government is showing determination to make things work better. I'll come on to this shortly. Now, so the government is going to make, there's a lot of initiative, like I said, to make sure that generation will improve. There's a lot of initiative to make sure that ATC&C losses will reduce. And there's a lot of pressure from multilateral agencies, from consumers, to make sure that policy, there's sustainability and adherence to policy. There must be policy determination and direction to make sure that investment that comes in can be employed for a long enough time for there to be recovery and return on investment for investors, to encourage investors to come in to the country. So how do we, if we look at how do we make it, make this system work? Some of it I've already mentioned. There needs to be strong political will. That Nigeria has a lot of good policies, good programs, but the political will to implement them and sustain them is an issue. For instance, if you've been reading about Nigeria in the last 2 weeks, there was a tariff increase, a long overdue tariff increase, but yet again, Labour came up and said, okay, tariff increase, deregulation of the oil downstream oil sector, they do not agree with it. And there was going to be a strike, but to avert the strike, government said, okay, let's leave the deregulation of the oil sector. We will reverse the tariff increase and go back to the old tariffs. Now, this would make any normal investor very shaky and afraid. However, towards sustainability, this particular government has also come up with a specific office for the ease of doing business, because one of the issues with Nigeria has always been that, okay, how do we come into Nigeria? How do we understand the terrain? How do we fit into the ecosystem? And how do we operate in that space? For a broad, let's look at broadly, all the investors and economic actors, you know, they would complain about access to capital in Nigeria and credit, electricity and power supply, government regulations not being steady, and reversals. You know, they complain about corruption and bribery. You know, there are market developments which need to be, you know, supported, like, you know, technological disruptions need to be supported in the system, the appropriate policies developed. Well, the good thing is that, yes, like I said, there's a specific office for this, and they are quite responsive. You can approach them, and they can also come in to help to clarify how things need to happen. And also to make business easier, to have, you know, difficult sectors. There's a key initiative where the central bank can, you know, has brought in capex into the power sector, for instance, because in some cases we can say the private sector has fallen short of delivering all the funding that is required. And why have they fallen short? Because, well, largely because of the environment and some of the dislocations. Again, we cannot underemphasize the importance of tariff in the business, and the regulator is working hard to see that, okay, they can get back to their tariff reviews, MITO tariff reviews. I understand one of the issues that have slowed down the tariff reviews has also been that there was a lawyer, there's been a lawyer who took government to court and got a court order halting MITO reviews. And until this was released, they could not actually increase tariff. But then again, also there's a political will. I mentioned ATC&C losses. One of the key ways of taking care of collection losses is with metering. And there's a lot of key incentives to the metering sector now, in which I play, for instance, to make sure that metering can happen quickly. For instance, the CBN has set up what is called the metering fund, and this will be going on and will help the discos to reduce collection losses. Again, there used to be what was called the, it used to be the government electricity development program under the presidency, which has now been converted into the Presidential Power Initiative, of which Siemens is the key driver in today's world. There's also another program, DISREP, which the World Bank also drives. Under the Siemens program, it's supposed to be close to $1.8 billion. The World Bank is putting down something like $750 million as well. And so there are these key initiatives with such, the Siemens being a private sector organization, the World Bank being interested in getting its money back. They are sitting down with government to make sure that, you know, there's a bit more policy consistency. They're trying to make sure that there's a bit more harmonization between the various arms of government so that things can work and there can be teamwork between all the parties. The Siemens program, for instance, is designed such that it's going to increase Nigeria's generation from the current, generation from the current 12.5 thousand megawatts to 25,000 megawatts. And in the process as well, it's going to make sure that what the discos are able to deliver and what the transmission company is able to deliver is harmonized along the value chain. Therein, I should mention that because a key question will be, why do we produce 12,500 megawatts and consumption is only between 3.5 to 4.7 gigawatts? This is largely because in between generation and distribution, you have the TC and the transmission company. And the transmission company, at best, can only wheel about 5,000 megawatts of what the generation companies can produce. This is a very weak link in the system. And so Siemens is coming in to say, okay, phase one of their project is to make sure that if 12,500 megawatts is available, they're going to make sure that at least 7,000 megawatts can be wheeled to the distribution companies. Phase two, under phase two, they're going to make sure that they get about 11,000 megawatts effective delivery into the system. Then they go into expanding the system to 25,000 megawatts. So the TCN is going to need some key investments. The distribution companies are going to need some key investments. And they emphasize the fact that to support the increase in generation, there's got to be a diversification of energy mix. So there's going to be more, they're going to encourage solar and waste to energy power generation to supplement the current thermal power generation. Now, they're also going to work with government to see that there's monetary and fiscal policy stability to facilitate medium to long-term planning for investors who want to come into this sector. Now, also, you have a situation where we have, there's going to be the ability to distribute power to end users is very important. And there's going to be a good and enabling policy framework to make sure that more companies like Azura Power can come in, whereby Nigerians have to appreciate that power purchase agreements are on a take-or-pay basis, guarantees are required, and there must be penalties in case of termination. This is what would make large power generation possible. However, we also believe that it is very key in Nigeria of today to think small, because big power plants take quite a while to arrange, develop, and build. So thinking small is going to be important. And in here you have, distributed generation will be developed, mini grids will be developed, and there needs to be increased deregulation. Power companies need to be able to own all the parts of the sector. Here you need to address transmission as well, and encourage more generation. Now, having said all of this, there are many parties and taking actions in the system. Again, I have mentioned the Siemens project. That is a key project, and to appreciate how important it is, government has released their 15% counterpart funding, which is about 8.64 billion naira, that has been released to make sure that Siemens and the German financiers can come in with the necessary funding to boost the sector. Now, this project is going to take care of funding the distribution, investment, funding, transmission, to strengthen the transmission grid. Is going to take care of diversifying and increasing generation. Now, like I said earlier, we have a situation too where the World Bank has its own thoughts. The World Bank is saying, there needs to be commercially viable distribution capacity, and what the amount required for this is even less than what you need in transmission and generation.
How long do you need? Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I'm going to try to limit it to like 5 minutes now.
Because other speakers are waiting.
I agree. So the World Bank says, look, we have to, the government has to lend, put a lot of money in distribution investments, and the government has to enhance and ensure policy and regulatory stability. And the government has to work with all the stakeholders to align and enforce market contracts. Misaligned contracts means GENCOs commit to supply, DISCOs commit to take portion of whatever is supplied, and they have to develop to know that they can do this. Now, once we are able to get all of that going, we're going to say, well, what opportunities are there for investors in this market? I think in this market, there are a lot of power generation investments that are possible. Like I have said, I err or support mini generation projects because these kind of projects are quicker to establish, and they can be supported with mini grids. You think small, you make small nodes, and your development period, execution period is smaller. Even the regulatory framework that you have to overcome is less than a big project. So yes, thank you very much, Ezosa. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.